Top 20 Trainer Interview Questions and Answers. Trainers mainly play the role of empowering others. Training is done to keep up with change, conform to industry standards, and more. Training improves employee performance and productivity, increases engagement, and helps to enhance service delivery. Thus, hiring a competent trainer is of great importance to any organization. To identify the right trainer, an employer needs to know the areas to test and assess. The following trainer interview questions and answers cover the most important areas that you should assess, including the responses to expect. 1. Tell us about yourself. This question is commonly asked at the beginning, and the interviewer wants to hear a summed up and short version of you. Tip number 1. Briefly talk about your qualities, experience, and qualification that relate to this job. Tip number 2. Be confident and give a direct response. Sample answer: currently, I work at JKL firm as a trainer. I have worked in this company for 6 years. Previously, I worked with a non-governmental organization as a trainer for 3 years. I hold a bachelor's degree in training and development. I am a good communicator, resilient, and passionate about empowering others. With my passion and experience, I will be a great asset to your company. 2. Why do you want this job? The interviewer seeks to understand your reasons for seeking this job. Tip number 1. State why you want the job. Tip number 2. Be honest and clear. Sample answer: I think I have learned all I can in my company. Besides, I have gained great experience in training. I am confident that I can take up more responsibility, new challenges, and handle bigger teams. I believe your company will offer me the chance to exercise these. 3. Why do you want to leave your current job? Here, the interviewer wants to hear what is triggering your move to leave your current job. Tip number 1. State why you no longer want to work for your current employer. Tip number 2. Avoid talking negative things about your employer. Sample answer: I appreciate the time I have worked at JKL company because I have achieved a lot personally and for the company. However, I feel that it's time to use my skills and competencies in an industry that I'm passionate about. I also believe that this role is the ideal next step in my career. 4. What makes you the right candidate for this job? Using this question, the interviewer seeks to know what makes you the most suited individual for this position. Tip number 1. Mention what makes you the right candidate. Tip number 2. Ensure to provide a convincing answer. Sample answer: I have worked as a trainer for 9 years in 2 different companies. Over this period, I have gained great experience in this field. Besides, my academic background is in training and development. With these, I will be able to execute this role effectively and professionally. 5. What do you understand by a successful training session? This question tests your familiarity with a successful training session. Tip number 1. Describe a successful training session. Tip number 2. Make the interviewer know that you can conduct training successfully. Sample answer: a successful training session refers to a situation where the goals of training have been achieved. In that case, the client is satisfied with the training outcome. Thus, both the trainer and trainee achieve the desired results. 6. What inspired you to become a trainer? Here, the questioner wants to know what motivated you to become a trainer. Tip number 1. State why you decided to become a trainer. Tip number 2. Be honest and brief with your answer. Sample answer: during my schooling years, I discovered that I liked helping people. I also realized that I am a good motivator. This led me to pursue training in my undergraduate studies. Also, my dad was a motivational speaker. I used to read some of the books that he wrote and read. That also inspired me a lot towards pursuing a course in training. 7. Briefly describe a summary of a training program that you can set for a client. Here, your ability to come up with a training program is assessed. Tip number 1. Explain how you would create a training program. Tip number 2. Show that you are skilled in developing an effective training program. Sample answer. First, I would have a conversation with the client about the areas that training should cover and the goals as well. This can involve filling a form with some questions about the training needs. Next, I would analyze the information provided to determine the training needs. Finally, I would develop a training program that covers all the identified areas and other important elements such as the training schedule. 8. How do you keep your trainees motivated? The interviewer seeks to know how you ensure that your trainees are motivated. Tip number 1, mention ways you keep your trainees motivated. Tip number 2, prove that you can keep your trainees inspired. Sample answer. First, I reward trainees that attend a specific number of training sessions. Second, whenever there is a planned or ongoing training, I usually send email reminders to the participants. Third, I also recognize my trainees at the beginning of training. This makes everyone feel a part of the training and that they are valued. Lastly, if anyone gets stuck, I guide them through the difficult area. 9. What makes you a good trainer? Using this question, the interviewer seeks to know your abilities and strengths that make you a good trainer. Tip number 1, state why you are a good trainer. Tip number 2, make sure to include all important points. Sample answer. I can conduct training in different areas. My expertise includes the ability to analyze the potential of every trainee and develop effective training programs. Also, I have charisma and I can inspire people whenever called upon to do so. 10. What do you like most about being a trainer? The interviewer asks this question to know what you like most about your job. Tip number 1, state what you like most as a trainer. Tip number 2, be honest and make the interviewer know that you love your job. Sample answer. As a trainer, I'm meeting new and interesting people from time to time. I like it when I train them and impart new knowledge and skills in the process. In the end, I am always happy for the opportunity to empower them. 11. As a trainer, explain the concept of great customer service. This question tests your understanding of great customer service. Tip number 1, state what you understand by great customer service. Tip number 2, show you are well informed about offering customers a great service. Sample answer. The first step towards great customer service is identifying customers' needs. With that understanding, it is possible to offer appropriate and relevant solutions to them. For instance, I make sure to determine the training needs of my clients. Following that, I develop appropriate training programs to satisfy those needs. Great customer service also involves offering what clients need with a good and positive attitude. Efforts should be made to exceed their expectations whenever possible. 12. What strategy do you use to build rapport with trainees or potential clients? Building rapport is a great step towards making training engaging and effective. The interviewer seeks to know how you establish rapport. Tip number 1, state how you establish rapport with trainees or potential clients. Tip number 2, give a complete and correct answer. Sample answer. At the onset of any training, I usually have an opening session that includes introducing myself to trainees and giving them a chance to introduce themselves as well. I seek their input in making the daily training schedule convenient for everyone. During training sessions, I engage them in friendly conversations. Besides, I am always approachable and remain positive. 13. What strategy do you use to find new clients? In some businesses, trainers are responsible for recruiting clients. The interviewer wants to know how you go about finding new clients. Tip number 1, state the strategy you use to find new clients. Tip number 2, demonstrate that you are competent in this area. Sample answer. In the past, I have relied mainly on referrals to get new clients. A positive review from a past client or a friend is a great way to attract new and consistent clients. But 1 month ago, I completed a recruitment training course through which I learned some new strategies that include using social media and other digital strategies. I plan to implement them going forward. 14. What are your roles as a trainer? Your familiarity with the roles of a trainer is sought here. Tip number 1. State several roles performed by trainers. Tip number 2. Show that you are familiar with your roles. Sample answer. My main role is to evaluate training needs and current practices and then develop and deliver a training development plan. This plan will include tutorials, materials, instructions, and training materials such as guides and modules. Other roles include developing training schedules, developing training strategies, reviewing employee learning and performance, and directing training. 15. What qualities should a trainer have to be effective? Certain qualities make trainers successful. That is what the interviewer seeks to know using this question. Tip number 1. State several qualities that trainers should possess. Tip number 2. Demonstrate that you know what makes a good trainer. Sample answer. A trainer should have good communication skills as the role involves communicating with employees and coaching them. He or she should have good listening skills. This is important when it comes to understanding the needs of trainees. A good trainer should have the ability to think creatively and be flexible. Besides, a trainer should have in-depth knowledge of the industry he or she will be training in, and be able to facilitate learning and change. 16. What is your training philosophy? Here, the interviewer wants to understand your approach to training. Tip number 1. Mention your training philosophy. Tip number 2. Be brief and honest with your answer. Sample answer. My philosophy is that training is most effective when trainees stay motivated. Thus, I make sure to offer some motivation during the training sessions. Doing so keeps everyone attentive and in the end, training is always very successful. 17. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? The answer to this question can help your potential employer to make better plans for the long term. Tip number 1. State what you aim to achieve in 5 years. Tip number 2. Show your ability to make achievable goals. Sample answer. In 5 years, I want to have gained significant experience in my profession. I will also be able to take on more complex and difficult challenges and come up with effective solutions. Besides, I will possibly enroll for further studies to grow further in my profession. 18. What approach do you use to solve conflict? Here, the interviewer wants to assess your problem-solving skills. Tip number 1. State how you would resolve conflict. Tip number 2. Demonstrate that you can resolve conflict. Sample answer. First, I find out the cause of the conflict. Once the cause has been identified, I focus my energies on providing a long-lasting solution. This is to ensure that it doesn't occur again. 19. How do you measure and monitor performance? The interviewer wants to know how you monitor and measure performance. Tip number 1. State how you monitor and measure performance. Tip number 2. Be sincere and honest. Sample answer. I begin by setting clear training goals and expectations. Then, I ensure that everyone is involved in the training. This involves getting members to confirm that they understand them and that everyone will work towards those goals. Then, I develop plans for assessing the short-term and long-term goals. These plans help to assess and progress and determine how far the goals have been achieved. 20. As a trainer, how do you stay up to date with developments in your field? The interviewer wants to hire someone who stays current and can bring new ideas to the company. Tip number 1. State how you remain current with developments in your field. Tip number 2. Be honest and clear with your answer. Sample answer. I have subscribed to 2 training newsletters that publish new developments and happenings in the field. Besides, I keep in touch with other trainers through our social media groups. We discuss new trends as they happen. I also participate in local trainers' seminars where new or expected developments are discussed. Conclusion. These trainer interview questions test both role-specific and behavioral aspects of every candidate. They will help you to have a complete understanding of the skills, qualities, and experience of your candidates. With that, you will be able to select the most qualified individual for the job.